morning.
Good morning. Hello.
Hi.
Hi. Thank you so much for agreeing to meet with me today, Ellen.
Well, it's a pleasure. Thank you for asking me.
Good.
I don't actually do many podcasts, and I usually say no, but I liked your accent.
That's good.
I know, I'm kidding. There was the quality in your voice was, I just liked the sort of intention I could feel in your voice.
Oh, good. Thank you.
Not to say that I'm a diva and I refuse every part. It's not like that. It's just that I just don't necessarily enjoy,
Yeah.
you know, that sort of self-promoting frenzy that is going on.
Yeah. And I hope that this is not that, because that's not even what I want it to be.
I could tell. That's why I said yes. Yeah. Yeah.
Yeah. And really, in a way, sometimes I kind of make up something in my head, but I really don't even really know what I want it to be.
Yes. Yes. Yeah.
But I think it's kind of just like my own exploration, and then I'm kind of sharing that at the same time.
Yeah. Exactly.
Yeah,
Yeah.
so I feel like the exploration at the moment is something like, so there's self-recognition, and I'm
Hmm.
kind of, in circles, and many people that I know are familiar with self-recognition. But I think there's so many ideas,
Yeah.
that get picked up after that. So like I think there's so many people who like believe they're awake and all, but like it doesn't kind of feel or look like love. Really. And I remember even saying to my own teacher like years ago, like if it doesn't translate as love in the world, then I'm not interested. I don't want it.
Mm. Mm-mm-mm.
And I suppose just what I see in myself as well is, even though I do feel very clear in my heart that God is here and there's no separation, but yet I also see myself behaving, as if there is separation
Of course.
sometimes.
Of course. Of
And
course. Of course. And I think well, anyway, have we begun or?
yeah, yeah,
Oh, okay. It's very informal. That's lovely. Yeah. No, I just wanted to interject that why shouldn't it be like that? I think there's so many spiritual ideas about there's this sort of self-recognition, and then the mind comes in with all sorts of spiritual ideas about how that's it. Now I'm supposed to be spiritual. I'm supposed to be always experiencing oneness. I'm supposed to be whatever. And it's like, no, I'm afraid that's not. It
yeah.
doesn't seem to be the plan here.
Exactly. Because in
Yeah.
a way, it's kind of like sold as if it's the end, like you must recognize yourself, and this is like the ultimate thing, it's like the top of the mountain or something. And like you have
Yeah.
to reach there, but it's like it's kind of not like that. It's more of a beginning, if
Yeah.
anything.
Yeah. Although, I mean, in many traditions, I think they do speak about how after awakening, there's the pre-awakening, quote unquote, and the post-awakening
Yeah.
sadhana in the Indian tradition, or I guess in the Christian tradition. It's not over. The game
Yeah.
is just beginning.
Yeah.
It's more that after awakening, you don't have as much of an excuse anymore. Before awakening, you didn't know any better. But after
Yeah.
awakening, you have a
Yeah.
compass.
Mhm.
You have more. I mean, that there is no personal choice, but I don't know. It's more like there's an impersonal choice as you go along. You catch
Yeah.
yourself getting lost in your suffering, and you have a choice what to do then.
Yeah.
And there's not one right way. I don't think when we catch ourselves acting, I
Mm.
don't know, or being caught in suffering. It's not like, okay, now I've caught myself in suffering, so I just need to go back to my true nature.
No.
I don't know about that. I
Yeah. I like when you say there's not one way,
no.
but I
Yeah.
feel like, I don't know, what's coming here more and more is like to just kind of be authentic and true to yourself. So nobody can tell you what's the right thing to do. You know, I think we're
Yeah.
just seeking peace, isn't it? Like we're all just seeking to kind of feel peaceful or
Yeah.
something. I don't know.
Yeah. And then again, if you hear somebody saying something that lands,
Yeah.
or even if you meet a teacher that really resonates and you spend time with that teacher for a long time, then it's not somebody telling you what to do at that moment. It's a recognition. So it's you telling you what to do, but
Yeah.
in via
Yeah.
via teach. But again, that can shift, or that may require discrimination.
Yeah.
At some point, that very same teacher or teaching, it may not resonate for a bit, and it's not that it needs to be binned and trashed, but it means that something else is wanting to be explored that may
Yeah.
seem to contradict the teaching, and in fact isn't in contradiction of the essential teaching. So you're right about that. I don't know if you're right or wrong, but I resonate with that. Ultimately we really must listen in on our own sort of sensitivity with the truth.
Yeah. And maybe that's what kind of meeting a teacher or something can do, is to point us to our own wisdom, and kind of we can get more and more like, I suppose, just trust our own inner guidance and not be afraid, even if it's wrong. Like it's okay to just trust the impulses that we have inside us more.
Yes. Was it difficult for you to trust your impulses?
Um, I think I'm still learning.
Yeah.
Yeah. And in a way, like sometimes it feels like the way I behave or the things I do, it can seemingly go against my own teacher who I completely love.
Yeah.
Like I have just a super great love for him. It can seem like that, but I know he wouldn't say anything about it anyway. But like I just have to, I think I'm just learning to let myself be myself.
Yeah, because we don't necessarily see us, like following your deep impulses doesn't mean just doing what you feel like doing every second. That would
No.
be, but I think you're speaking about something much more subtle, which
Mm,
is listening in on those aspects of ourselves that we've pushed away or exiled,
mm,
which come up through, I guess, our relationships, through our life situations, through our dreams, through our
yeah.
imaginations. And it's like a redeeming of our whole self. Not here, I don't think I'm talking about the sort of awareness, but rather the wave that we each are. You
Yeah.
know, Amba, Ellen.
Mm,
There's Once we realize our essential nature, there's still Ellen still can discover things about Ellen.
yeah.
An Ellen that would be in line with her her essential nature, which is whatever we like to call it. But
Yeah.
nevertheless, there's still something to explore about, well, what's Ellen meant to be doing here? You know,
Yeah.
to
I think
be
that's the exploration, really,
yeah,
because I feel like sometimes in kind of, I think you're from a kind of non-dual path. Is your teacher is Francis Lucille? Is he? I'm not very familiar with him, but I think he's a non-dual teacher. Is that right?
yes,
Yeah. So my teacher is Muji, and his disciple, really mostly his disciple, Ananta. And that's a very non-dual path, very like direct as well. But I feel
yes,
then you get to know a lot of people, you know,
yes,
like that are in the same in the same kind of drawn towards the same teaching. But I feel like sometimes we can kind of get caught up in you know, the beyond everything side of things. So
yes,
what we're discovering is like that we are beyond, in a way. Like it's only one aspect really, but like the aspect that's beyond everything in a way, and then somehow there seems to be an ignoring of the individual or the human, and
yes,
kind of integrating that. So that's one of the reasons why I loved, you call your work, I think, the awakening body,
yes.
which I think is good to bring focus to. And I like the your choice of words about
Mm.
that. And I don't know, maybe you'd like to share something about that.
Well, it's funny. I was wondering about that this morning, about that name, the awakening body, because it sort
Mm.
of came poetically. I didn't think I'm going to call this that because then it means this and this and that.
Mm-hmm.
And
Yeah.
it actually was more just a poetic, sort of title.
Mm-hmm.
And then I was thinking about it this morning, and I'm now thinking about what you just said about how in some non-dual communities there can be a tendency to maybe to do what they call the spiritual bypass, where
Mhm.
you're in a very big hurry to stand as awareness and to sort of, you're in
Exactly.
a big hurry to sort of, I don't know, sometimes too big of a hurry in my opinion
Yeah.
to to get somewhere or to claim something, which is the absolute. And in my experience, Amba, like from the very beginning, although I think at heart I'm an absolutist in the sense that when I recognized my true nature, so to speak, it was unmistakable, and it still is a resounding feeling in myself.
Mm.
And it never put an end to my personal journey as a person, as Ellen, with her
Yeah.
story, her past, her family, her future, her future in the sense of what I may be looking forward to, my struggles, my suffering, all of that still
Mm.
continued in a way more intensely.
Mm.
Um, but but more intensely in one way and less intensely in another, because of that ever-present sort of sense of everything's okay and
Mm.
everything is unfolding as it should, including your trajectory, your story, your
Yeah.
struggles, your wrestling.
Mm.
And in my case, there was something about the body and also the feminine nature of my person and how
Mhm.
that played out in my life. And
Mhm.
I was always drawn to exploring the body, I think, both as an expression of my suffering. I had an eating disorder for years, so it was like sort of the field where I acted out
Mm.
something. And then when I started on a healing journey and a spiritual journey, it was really very much with the body too,
Mm.
in many different ways. And then I discovered non-duality, and in the non-dual tradition there is an exploration of the body where we try to perceive the body in line with
Mm.
what we know to be true. Anyway, so I'm saying a lot, but really
Mm.
what I'm wanting to say is that awakening body feels like, to me, a place where I can be with people, and we sometimes take our stand as awareness,
Mm.
and we just explore our experience of the body, of our bodies, and of our perceptions, sort of from the perspective that there is no separation. So we, in a way, we try to align our feeling of the body to that understanding very gently.
Mm.
And in that process, we become lovingly, we not become lovingly, we welcome lovingly the layers of separation in the body. So we go from awareness, from the ocean we look at the wave, you could say,
Mhm.
from the totality we look at our body, at our experience.
Mm.
And at other times we start from me, the body, me, Ellen,
Mm.
and we sort of allow that to be expressed,
Mm.
and to from the wave back to the ocean. It's so maybe if there's a feeling, or a
Mm.
contraction, or an emotion that's so-called negative, in some circles they call them
Mm.
negative emotions. For me, that's so we go from there, and we allow that part of us that has been sort of exiled or pushed down or repressed, or
Mm.
it's not okay, it shouldn't be, it's not spiritual, it's not
Mm.
we let it we approach it as we would approach a wounded being on a battlefield. Like our bodies are
Yeah.
they're battlefields, our bodies, there's
Yeah.
so we come in peace, to these parts, and
Yeah.
we come without an agenda,
Mm.
and we see what happens, and anyway, and on we go.
Yeah.
And then in life there can be other explorations. It's like psychological explorations,
Yeah.
that are also valid, in the sense
Mm.
that they they let us understand creation. Like if we explore our dreams and our patterns and our trauma and our generational story and how things happened in our families, in our tribe, in our communities, and we learn something about our own creation.
Yeah.
So I think I don't know. I don't have one way to look at it.
Yeah. Do you feel like through, maybe, I don't know if you would use these words, but through like allowing all the feelings and sensations in the body, and maybe even exploring like the psychological aspects of ourselves, what's really happening is we're kind of allowing then ourselves to kind of experience our true nature more and more. Kind
Yes.
of, yeah, like somehow that gets deeper and deeper and deeper, and that maybe that initial self-recognition kind of fuels us, like there's a kind of a love there.
Yeah. Well, I
And
can
then,
tell your path is the path of love, Amba. And
yeah.
I think mine is too. It's yeah, I think I love how you're saying that. Just it's simple. Like it's like a bit like a mother with her child, our true nature is the mother. It's the
Yeah.
unconditional uh, and it's not something we can be. It's just something we are, not as a obviously not as a body mind, but we can sort of, because we forget it and we have yeah, we have forgotten the love. Our love is very conditional, or seems to be very conditional and very, very selective. But when we put ourselves in the way of an inquiry or in meditation, or when we sort of enter the shrine in our heart, when we turn back towards what we love the most, which is the love,
Yeah.
then it's like something shifts. The heart opens. I don't know. You say it, Amba.
Yeah.
Because I know you know it somehow in your own heart.
Yeah. I don't
It's like
know.
it's just so simple in a way. Like
Yeah.
it's like love arises like the sun in the morning.
Yeah. Yeah. And then
And
why would we not include everything then? From here, it's like, even because the thing is sometimes it's just an interference really of the mind. And I
yeah,
think it's like a habit of giving attention and energy to what the mind says, because if we're discovering that, in a way, what we truly are is really, like, in a way, it kind of can seem like that everything here is not even really here. It's just an idea.
yeah,
Like, it's
yeah,
totally not even here. So then there's a kind of a temptation then to disregard everything, like,
yes,
well, then I can behave anyway, do anything, like it's really not even here. It's just like as if you find yourself awake in a dream, you know,
yes,
like a
yes,
dream at night, you kind of can feel like, oh, what am I going to do? And like, I know myself, sometimes if I find myself awake in a dream, I do things that I
yes,
wouldn't actually do in real life,
uh,
because there's no consequences,
yes,
you know.
really, it's fun.
I do that sometimes. The rebel comes out in me, must be when I'm asleep or something.
Yeah, so I think you're saying that there's a real care for life and the unfolding.
Yeah,
It's, um, and then you also said something about we can see that it's the mind that overlays something on situations or relationships or events, and that's
yeah,
what's problematic, because if the mind wasn't doing that,
yeah,
they would, and that's true. But that habit of the mind, that habit of suffering, that habit of for example, like I'm this way and I'm not
hmm
that way, like
hmm
that's the other is like that, I'm not
yeah,
that kind of attitude, which is a very mental disposition.
uh
It runs very, very deep. And
yeah,
so I guess the process uh, of so in meditation, it's easy to go straight back.
yeah,
We're not really engaged with the other or with life. In meditation, we're just here and now with
mm,
the thoughts and sensations that arise, and we can it's quite easy in the shrine.
Yeah.
to say yes to all, to say yes undiscriminately to experience moment by
Yeah.
moment. But then we go back out
Yeah.
into the, and there, I there's some, and actually I say it's very easy in meditation, but actually that's not true, because in meditation sometimes we can feel a resistance, a
Mm.
boredom, an agitation, a sense of,
Yeah.
and and that's the moment of 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 staying a bit,
Mm.
letting that layer surface, being complete, surrendering any agendas for anything to be different, all those kinds of things, saying
Mm.
yes.
Yeah.
um but but um but in life it's a little bit more complicated, you could say.
Yeah.
Like, let's say you and I were having an argument and we
Mm.
got caught up in it, and
Yeah.
we were both defending ourselves and our position, and there would be and and anger and whatever,
Yeah.
and um we would have to, that situation would maybe be seemingly lacking in love, and
Mm.
then we'd go away, and we'd sort of go back to it and examine it under the light of our understanding, and
Yeah.
we'd have to recognize many facets of it.
Yeah.
We'd have to be willing to see all the different shades, and the places of attachment, and the places of outrage versus
Yeah.
defensiveness versus, and that is a task that is loving,
Yeah.
but
Like
but
good
not,
use of time.
yeah, but it doesn't immediately translate as spiritual, and it's messy
Yeah.
sometimes.
Yeah.
Being a human being is not being God. Being a human being is
Yeah.
not being God. And I think sometimes on the spiritual journeys we think we need to be God. No, no, we
Yeah.
can't.
Yeah. And I think we can see our teachers like as God because in one sense they are, but and they're human as well,
They
you know,
very
and
much so are human.
and sometimes we don't see that, especially if we're not spending a long time with them. Like if we're blessed to spend a lot of time with them, we can see all their humannesses. And I think that
Yes.
can help us then to accept all those humannesses in ourselves. But sometimes we just see a teacher, on a YouTube screen or something,
Yes.
or Zoom, and they're just this perfect being who's like imparting this wisdom, and they
Yes.
don't talk about that they have a human challenge sometimes, and I actually
Yes.
feel like that's so, um,
Misleading.
yeah, I wasn't going to say that, but yeah,
Well, I think I feel that. I feel
but
I
yeah,
have felt misled, and it has been a waste of time. Of course, not really, but I feel like,
yeah,
what is it about teachers? And maybe I do the same. So
yeah. I would love to see if teachers more and more would share just stories from their own life, like something challenged, like yeah, I had a huge big argument with my husband the other
yes,
day, and then to share their process, the
yes.
process of what they did, and that would be just so much more real, I feel, and inspiring. um
Well,
like
keep
that.
asking for that, and I think maybe more and more teachers will. And maybe there's a sort of culture of, in the non-dual tradition, of being a bit too in a hurry to make away with a separate self.
Yeah.
Like every time there's a negative feeling or a conflict, that's an expression of separation. So that, because the focus is so much on that, like needing to, so all you have to do is inquire, on whose
Mm,
behalf or is this feeling coming up, and who am I really, and then
mm,
back, back to your true nature. And meanwhile, this whole area that is so fertile and so much messier to explore, because you can't cut
mm,
through like that. You have to sort of take time, and
yeah.
and the spiritual attitude would dismiss that as psychological and say, no, that's for the psychotherapy. It's not.
Yeah.
And I think I disagree more and more. I think that there's a sort of the vertical path, which is the direct path,
Mhm.
and I absolutely, yes, and I
Yeah.
bow to our teachers who really hold up that vertical.
Yeah. Same. Mm.
And then, but then there's the horizontal, you could say, the place where the trajectory of our lives unfolds, and there it's not a direct path, and it's a path where we explore our unconscious, our dreams, our attachments,
Mm.
or our functioning, and we don't judge. We don't have an idea about how it should be. We are looking. We are looking.
Yeah.
We postpone judgments. We don't have big ideas, big spiritual notions.
Yeah.
We try not to, and if we do, we put them on the altar too, because that spiritual one,
Mm.
full of light and love and all this. Yeah, I'm not sure. Light and love arise, but
Yeah.
if there's a person identified with that, then
Mm.
there's bound to be somebody down there in the basement that's unloving, not very light, pretty
Yeah.
ugly to look at, and smelly.
Yeah.
And like, no, let's bring that one up too.
Yeah. And I feel like it's not so much about, if there's separation showing up in our lives through different stories, like that's okay. We don't have to judge ourselves for that, but it's more about how we um will deal with that. Like you say, like when you find yourself in an argument with someone, then what do you do afterwards? To look at all the different aspects and
Yeah.
just not be afraid. Like I feel like when we're in touch, or when we're able to recognize our true nature, it gives us the strength and courage. Really,
Mm-hmm.
I don't know, can't think of any other words, but the
Oh, I like
courage,
it.
yeah,
Strength and courage.
yeah, to be able to look at all those things, like that you said, like smelly and dark and bad and all the bad
All the
words
yummy
that we can
stuff,
think of.
all the yummy stuff. Honestly, there's a lot of good energy there.
Yeah.
But yeah, yeah,
Yeah, so we don't really have to. I'm just kind of exploring or affirming to myself, and you can say whatever comes up, but almost like we don't really have to reach an end. Like there's no end really at all. Like I don't see an end. I don't want an end or see an
yeah.
end or
Well, no, because
expect an end.
as long as Amba's alive and Ellen, it's fun to be alive. And so
Mm.
at any given moment, you and I can close our eyes and sort of fold Ellen back up, fold Amba back up into the now, and
Yeah.
sort of, you know, just just I don't know how to say it, but
See.
touch the peace
Mm.
and the source, or
Mm.
however the words would come in that moment. But then we're back in action, like we're back in the film, like, and
Yeah.
I think then it's a matter of following our God-given, which I don't mean by that spiritual God-given. We don't really know what that would be. It would be
Mm.
what drives us, our passion, our
Mm.
suffering too, like what our
Mm.
our drama, like the core drama of our lives. I think each one
Mm.
of us, we have a place that keeps occurring, and so to continue to explore that. And how am I going to explore that, and
Yeah.
what modality really excites me, or what
Mm.
healing practice, and of course also not knowing.
Mm. Can I
not
ask you a question that's gone to my head? Sorry
Yeah.
for interrupting you a little
No.
bit in the midst of the most amazing words.
Not
Of
knowing,
not knowing, yeah,
exactly.
sorry. um, so just the kind of question that came, you don't have to go into details, just whatever comes, or just say no if you want. But have you seen, like, what triggered it was you said, like, we have these kind of stories, that come up, and the same things come again and again and again often. So have you seen in your own experience something that seemed like a big issue? I'm really going to ask you about your kind of practical way of if you got through it or if it got less or something. So, if you've seen a story coming up that felt like you were very identified with it. or something, or it caused you trouble, or you acted out in a way that didn't
Mm.
feel in harmony with yourself. If something comes to mind, and kind of, did you find your way through that? Like, is it completely gone, or is it still there and you're more peaceful with it? Or,
Mm.
if you know what I mean.
Yes, it's a bit personal.
Yeah,
But,
so that's why I said you don't have to like answer it
but
at all, or you
um,
don't have to speak about what it is, or just whatever you feel comfortable with. Sorry.
no, I mean, I would be open to speaking. Definitely yes, and definitely
Mm,
still.
mhm.
Um, um, and definitely as my process, and so I'll just remain a little bit vague because
Yeah, that's fine.
I'm not the only one implicated,
Yeah, that's totally
but
okay.
it's definitely to do with identity, to do with relationship, to do with the
Mm,
feminine, and
mm,
what, a process of liberating something around this feminine nature and
mm,
the difficulty around that, and with my body, um,
mm,
and sort of a real wrestle with what is my body and attachment to my body as a
mm,
woman, and confusion, a lot of confusion.
mm,
Anyway, so as the years have gone by, and when I met Francis, it didn't put an end to that, um,
mm,
but it definitely gave me the main compass, the place where I could always come back to. It was me. It was my
mm.
deepest, my place of refuge, and the place where all
Yeah.
is well. So that was,
Mm,
was was invaluable. But then I had to continue, and I thought that would be the end of therapy. That's
mm.
it, finito. I was going to be able to, and it wasn't, and it isn't. I mean, I continue
Yeah.
to engage deeply with my suffering, which continues. And I mean, I'm not a, I'm enjoying
Yeah.
my life, but there are
I
areas to do
understand.
with my family history that now more than ever, and maybe it's because I'm in middle age, and there's,
Mm,
when you reach your 50s, you're like, okay, let's go for it, nothing to lose, let's just really
yeah.
go. And so I've actually started Jungian analysis again,
Okay. Like,
which
does
is,
that mean you do it, or you receive it, or I don't know
I
what much
receive
about
it,
it.
I receive it,
Okay. So it's
and I
through
never
dreams.
thought.
Is it dream? Like, you go to someone and you talk about your dreams, and they kind of help you to interpret it and find out what's going on a deeper level or something. Is that what it is?
Well, some of it is that, and it's just a space where you can go to, and somebody is there holding it with you. And instead of sitting up, you lie down, which means that when you lie down, you're less in control as the person, and so
Mm,
you can free associate, and you find yourself going here and there, and you bring a dream image, and you're back in a place of very early childhood,
mm,
you unravel. Basically, you
mm.
let yourself unravel, and because I'm a therapist, it's a very interesting process for me because it helps me with my work, but
Yeah.
it's got nothing to do with non-duality, and
Yeah.
yet it fits,
Yeah.
is really what I wanted to say. It fits, and I'm very happy to be doing it, and then to be offering, that kind of approach to my clients, not
Yeah.
just telling them about their true nature or trying to get them back to just
Yeah.
seeing where they want to go. What kind
Yeah.
of, they might bring a dream. The dreams are amazing.
Mm,
The unconscious
yeah.
is a map. It really gives us so many clues.
Mm.
Um,
I've always been really big into dreams as well. Like, even I
some,
remember when I was very young, like even in school, I'd be like, I'm not sure if that was a dream, if that really happened, or if it was a dream. Like, and then I remember my friends just thinking I was totally crazy.
but it
Uh,
sounded earlier. You said something. I thought, do you lucid dream? It sounded like you have.
oh,
But,
sometimes
yeah.
I haven't really had a lucid dream in quite a while, but I remember when I was very young, I read a book about lucid dreaming, so I kind of I was trying to initiate them.
Yes.
And then sometimes I would just have them spontaneously as well.
Yeah.
Yeah.
What's beautiful about that process of working like that is that it challenges the position of the ego. which
Mm.
is, right now we're talking more or less from that position of,
Mhm.
what we think we know and our ideas about spirituality. But the more you also let yourself be informed by your dreams and
Mm.
by things that you really are like, me angry, me, like, the things that you think are absolutely not you, but of course
Mm.
they appear in your dream as
Yeah.
the homeless person that knocks on the door, or
Yeah.
the hag, or all the shadow that
Yeah.
often turns up in our dreams. So the more we become comfortable with that, the less attached we are to a position.
Mm.
And that's a very healthy thing. It's because, after all, positions are boring.
Yeah.
And I don't
Yeah.
think that the creator,
Mm.
when I get in touch with the body and experience in the moment, it's fluid.
Mm.
It widens. It's one moment it's this, and the next moment it's open,
Mm.
and the body's a real expression of that.
Yeah.
But it's full of contradiction, because immediately I want to say, but it's
Yeah.
also so good to know something, to know I am,
Mm.
so it's full of paradox.
Yeah. I like when you say position is boring. I feel like we might, need to remind ourselves of that like we don't really want to be in a position, because when you accept a position for yourself, like whatever it is, I feel like it gets you kind of stuck, like there's no space to move because you're here,
Yeah,
whatever the position is, then you're not free to, maybe life wants to move you that way or this way,
yeah.
like it's like
I guess you can take it's like when you move, you take a posture. So you take a position, let's
mm,
say conversation,
mm,
but as soon as you attach yourself to that position, then you're in a position of defense,
yeah,
or assertiveness. But then you know that you've crystallized a separate self.
yeah,
So then I guess it's just, let's welcome that
yeah,
that defensive layer, because it's just a feeling, a fear, really.
yeah,
If we take if we adopt an opinion,
mm,
it's a fear. It's fear based, but it doesn't mean that we can't, in the flow of a conversation,
yeah,
adopt a position.
yeah, temporarily.
Yeah, or
Or
or be a spokesperson for it. And it may be that
of course, yeah,
that there are things we really do feel are valid, are
yeah,
natural, like,
mm,
I don't know, like prefer peace to conflict. Yes.
yeah, that's a
But
kind of a, well, yeah, that would be a common position, or a
it would,
position
but
even
then,
I would go back to myself, I feel.
yeah, but then if it becomes an opinion, it means that if conflict arises, you're like, that's conflict. Whereas really,
Yeah,
to
no,
prefer peace to conflict actually includes conflict.
yeah,
The peaceful attitude is to include conflict, inner conflict, outer.
mm,
So it's not it's not straightforward.
yeah. I love that as well. It's very like, I feel like that's real alive,
Mm,
it's life, and there's no, like, it's kind of like a position, or like there's no position you can take or no place you can land. You can
yeah,
say one thing, but then the opposite you can also say
yeah,
is like equally as
yeah,
true. So that's why
yeah,
I feel like we have to kind of find our own way
yeah.
and just be authentic to ourselves.
Because I was just going to say that, because we'll each have yes, exactly, Amba.
Yeah.
Because, like, we each have a way of singing our song, and that's not
Mm.
an opinion. That's how God meant. Like, if you find that you talk about love a lot, because that's
Mm.
just the word that comes to you a lot,
Yeah.
or that may not be an opinion. That might be, or a position, that just may be your sort of natural.
Yeah.
You can tell. We each can tell when something is coming from fear, or if it's just moving through us. We can tell the difference, really.
Yeah.
I think most of the time.
Yeah.
Sometimes it's a bit mixed.
Yeah. I think we can kind of get better at telling the differences. That's
Yeah,
something also that can kind of improve when we maybe give less reliance to our minds as the main kind of informer of what's going on.
That's so true, Amba. That's so true.
Mm.
It's like learning how we are played by
Yeah,
the divine, and the mind is just that it tries to hijack that process sometimes.
yeah.
Yeah.
I just had something in my mind I wanted to say about the dreams.
Yeah.
Was like, I like to see dreams as like there is no separation, even really, between our dream state and our waking state. So they're very obviously different states because different kind of things can happen in a dream. You know, it seems to be a lot faster or something. Like if you think something, then it will just appear straight away or something. These kind of magical things can happen that don't seem to happen as readily in this state. Um,
Yeah.
but I mean, just within ourselves and what we see in ourselves and in our own kind of consciousness, there's no distinction. So we can take something from our dream. And then, of course, if we're remembering it in the waking state, then it's here, really. You
Yes.
know, where the feeling is here when we're remembering it. And we can even reflect on it, like, you know, in the same way as we would reflect on something that just happened in this state.
Absolutely.
Because I don't think we're just this waking state, you know, because we're not. That's the thing we see. We're not just this kind of body mind. We're really consciousness, you know, so and that
And
means everything that's in consciousness as well.
is God's dream. So God's dream
Yeah,
is the waking state and the dream state equally.
yeah,
But
exactly.
it's like the waking state is God's dream opened sort of halfway, and then the dream state it opens it more fully, and we get
Yeah,
sort of a fuller dream. And yeah, and unfortunately, our culture is, I think, very materialistic in the sense of taking things very literally. You know, we read
yeah,
our lives and our situation in a very concrete way, and the Jungian approach redeems a more symbolic, sort of
mm,
mythical way of looking at our dreams and our lives.
yeah,
And it's and taking more seriously the sort of synchronistic events in our lives, the coincidences.
yeah,
Like, let's say you go on a walk and you see something, and then it connects with a conversation you had with your friend, and then there's a
mm,
dream, and you let all of that live.
yeah,
It's and there's something about that that really is lovely, because it loosens up these positions we were talking about,
yeah,
and it allows us to trust this intelligence,
mm,
which the mind really does sometimes hijack. The mind thinks, I'm in charge here, and
mm,
as long as I think the thoughts that I think, then we know we're going
mm,
to be okay. But
mm,
when we sort of tap into the magic really of,
mm,
and it's not always nice, the magic, it includes wars, and it includes
yeah,
suffering, and we have a tendency to think that that's really a defect. It's like that
mm,
shouldn't be. And here I think it's no, it is, and always has been. And how to be with that, how to not to reject war, not to reject conflict, and all those very dark places. That's tender territory.
mm,
um, and then when we read it more symbolically or more energetically, I feel like it allows us to wrestle with it more, to allow it more. Whereas when we think bad, Russia and Ukraine and Putin, and we point fingers and we make things very solid and very black and very white,
mm,
and I don't think I don't feel that's the way.
mm. And what would you feel would be the way to be with that, or for you, you can
Yeah.
say?
Well, I think to I'm not sure what the answer is. There wouldn't be a way, but to postpone conclusions, not to
Mm,
rush to a position. Doesn't mean, not to point to it, not to point the finger to a behavior that's violent or unkind or unloving. If
mm,
I see it,
mm,
but to see this as a collective expression, it's not the other out there that is being bad. It's a convergence. It's a co-creation. We are to wonder about the war in myself, to wonder about, to explore it like that, like not really knowing.
Yeah.
What are the feelings? If I have an aversion to one aspect of it, maybe let's go there. Let's have a conversation with Putin on the inside. What about my inner Putin?
Yeah.
My inner bully? That kind of swimming in it before sentencing the situation. It's unpeaceful, because it is here, and I am here. So
Yeah. So mostly just what I'm hearing, and I don't know if I'm right or not, but like really to just let ourselves feel everything that's arising within us and to not turn away from anything.
yeah,
And so
as best we can. And when we turn away, at some point we see that we turn away, and we realize that's a place of vulnerability.
Yeah, and maybe even to be
And
okay with that as well, and to not force, because you wouldn't force your child or something to do
exactly.
something they didn't want to do. Like you just invite, or
Yeah. Or again, paradox, you don't force, and then at another moment you do take your child and you sort of sit them down and you look at them in the eye and you say no,
yeah,
and at that moment, that's loving mothering too. So
yeah.
I honestly, I don't.
That's very good.
But
I like.
the not knowing, and then the knowing are they sort of have to marry. It's like the knowing must be completely in service of the not knowing.
Yes.
If you see what I mean, like, so it's like I don't have an agenda, but at the moment of, so I'm not knowing, thy will be done, and then at a certain moment I know, and so then okay. Oh, and then at another moment I'm totally confused and I'm lost and I hate and blah and blah and
Yeah.
and okay, can I stay there, not be in a rush? Can I be there? Can I be there? Can I?
Yeah. And this is life. I like what you said. It's like just like no conclusion about anything, and it's like there's just a free flow, because I feel like that's what we're really learning in a way, is learning to be human. Because
Yeah,
maybe before, like maybe I don't know if it's like this for you, but like before we come to our kind of teacher or something where there's much more resistance, we don't want to look so much, because there can be some of that, of course. Like many people are on a spiritual path and that's what leads them to someone who will confirm what they're seeing inside themselves.
yeah,
Um, but like there'll be much more kind of resistance and just looking away from, and maybe fear. But like when we come to really just to the self-recognition, and what we find is that then we're just kind of not afraid to be with everything that is here.
yeah,
And that's
yeah,
just life. I don't know.
yes, yeah,
Just everything is okay. I kind of feel like in myself, everything is just like I'm just kind of making peace with everything in a way. Like sometimes those words come. Like so then
yeah,
something might come, like some kind of challenge, or like then it's like, okay, so now I just need to make peace with this. And sometimes it's quicker than other times. Like you say,
yeah,
sometimes you can be just feel really rooted in
yeah,
the recognition or something. So everything is flowing from there and it's very obvious no matter what it is, even if it's an argument or whatever it is. Like so like nothing, it really doesn't matter. You don't even need to reflect then somehow in those times sometimes. But then sometimes, like you said, it's like
not
you
so
get
straightforward.
not so straightforward. Yeah, like it's like we kind of get caught up in the story, like
Yeah, and then maybe
a little bit.
just to say, okay, let's give it some time here. Let's not be in a rush. That's the moment to let the situation unfold a bit, to take
Yeah.
time, and that's when it can be useful to have a space to do that
Mm.
with a friend or a therapist there to, or not, if you have the
Yeah.
capacity to do it for yourself. um
Some people say, or like I've read somewhere or something. Ah, okay, I can't remember the exact words, but that there is this kind of final state, like the real true state or something. Liberation, let's say, not like recognition, but like
right,
liberation
right.
is when like there isn't even self-reflection anymore. There's no self-reflection
Yeah.
at all.
Well,
But
I'm skeptical, honestly, but
yeah,
maybe it's because I haven't reached that. But I don't think I'm interested. Honestly, that doesn't do
yeah,
anything for me. But I have heard it too, and I've heard
yeah,
teachers say, people ask them, well, do you ever get destabilized away from
mm,
this recognition? And they say something like, well, only sort of, and they quote a percentage, like 98% of the time. And I have
yeah,
to say that in those moments, I'm like, I don't believe you. Honestly, there's
yeah,
something in me that rises up that I'm like, and at the same time, I know that I have looked upon certain avatars in the Indian tradition, such as Ananda Mahima, for example, or
mm,
Ramana, and in living Amma. So in India, for some reason, and sometimes I look at those beings and I feel like, yes,
mm,
they are avatars,
yeah,
possibly. They are beings that come that are
yeah,
probably, uh, or at least they my mind does feel like, yeah, I I could see Ananda Mahima never got caught up in her.
yeah,
She never crystallized as a separate self,
yeah,
but I'm still cautious about those
yeah.
ideas.
I think we just have to be with where we are, because if you aspire for something, then you're not really awake anyway in the moment. I
Yes,
feel like, because I feel that idea
exactly.
as well, and I kind of like the idea in a way, but then it doesn't feel good in myself. Like it just
Yeah,
brings me into my mind, and I don't really want to aspire for it. And
exactly. It's an idea, so as long as it's an idea, it's going to be in the hands of the separate self.
exactly.
One day, Amba, you just will, at one point you will realize, my gosh, I really don't refer back to myself as a person very much anymore. But it will be
Mm.
so organic, and
Yeah,
uh, it won't be a thing, it will just be an increasing relaxation in a way.
yeah.
And
So,
possibly you're more there than you know.
mm. But I don't know if it's useful to, I guess we can only hear actually where we are in a way. Like we can only really accept into our heart, what we kind of know already in a
Hmm.
way. I don't know if this is true. So like
I
you
see. I
said,
think I see what you're saying.
like I liked your biography. It said something like your deepest intuition was confirmed when
Mm,
you met your teacher. And I also feel like that in a way about when I met my teachers. It's like they just kind of reflect back and say what you're seeing already.
yes.
And you're like,
Yes.
yes. And you're so grateful that they're actually affirming. And somehow, because you have love for them or something, you can really trust them, or something
Yeah.
in you just knows that you can trust them. And they're confirming what you also see to yourself. So they're
Yes.
really just somehow showing you that you can trust yourself and trust what you see for yourself.
Well, yeah, because that moment of yes, when you hear your teacher saying, consciousness, something very essential, and you
Mm,
feel a yes, that moment of understanding is a collapse of the separate self. I mean, it
yeah,
is what they call a glimpse, and that which says yes in you is you, your true
yeah,
self at that moment.
yeah,
Um,
yeah. So we can just kind of, and then whatever, there's lots of different layer, like words and things, but like it's like let's say insights. Someone might share an insight with you, but you can't really understand it unless you've kind of seen it yourself in a
yes,
way.
that's right.
Um, but I guess it happens in the world, so there's space for it as well to hear things like what I just said,
Yes.
that there's like such thing as liberation. But I feel
Yeah.
like you have to just not hold on to that.
Yeah, no, I definitely think that the fact that that concept exists meaningful.
Yeah.
But it's just very tricky when we start to take a hold of that as an
Yeah.
idea. Because as soon as it's an idea, we're moving away from the current experience. And,
Yeah.
but I can see, Amba, your deep and pure intention towards all of that. And
Yeah.
that's coming from the right place in my, in my feeling of you.
Yeah. Thank you. And I can see yours also.
Mm.
I love your like I feel like what I got from my meeting with you today, and I hope that whoever listens might get this and they might get something else. So, but I like that there's no, I feel like your expression in this conversation is like that there's no kind of resting place for one particular thing.
Yes.
And you're not like, even when you're saying something, you're saying, but I don't really know, like, so there's a total openness and just like you said, like the not knowing, like, and
Yeah,
then even though sometimes a knowing can come from that not knowing,
that's
but
right.
you impart that, your way of expression imparts that. And like you said, no conclusions,
Mm.
no position, no resting place. All of that I feel are, I hope, I don't know, I get from this conversation that that's what is here.
Well, I'm glad. Although, part of me, as I hear you, I'm like, I know, I wish I could sometimes claim something. And I do. But
No, I
anyway,
actually find great peace in that though. That I feel like there's such great peace in not knowing.
mm,
Like,
it is, isn't it? Yeah.
yeah,
Yeah. And feeling also, feeling, not knowing.
feeling.
Anyway, it's lovely to talk to you, Amba.
Yeah, so lovely to talk to you too. I'm very grateful for our time together.
Yeah, me too.
Yeah. I feel like sometimes when you meet somebody, or even sometimes when you just read a book that somebody has written, you kind of, in a way, it's not the right words, but you kind of take some of them into yourself
Mm.
in a way. So, like, you're part of me now, in a way. So that
So
feels
sweet,
nice.
Amba. And it's reciprocal. It's like we partook in this conversation. We
Mm,
we sort of merged, or
yeah. Thank you so
all
much.
right. Bye
Oh,
bye. Maybe we meet sometime.
that's it.
It was very nice. Take care, Amba.
Thank you. I wish you a beautiful day.
You too.
Mm,
Bye
bye.
bye.